Hi, I'm Patrick Burke. I'm a composer living in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, and I'm here with fellow composer and a good friend of mine, Missy Mazzoli, who is joining us from Brooklyn, and we're doing this for Pittsburgh New Music Net. So first of all, welcome, Missy. And
Thank you, Patrick.
but Missy's coming here with her group, Victoire, on August 7th at Most Wanted Fine Arts, which is in Penn Avenue, 5015 Penn Avenue. And this is actually the group's first performance outside of New York City, right?
It's true. Yes.
Great.
Mm-hmm.
Well, great. And this is also upon the release of your album, Cathedral City.
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, the album comes out September 28th on New Amsterdam Records. So this is sort of a pre-release tour that we're doing.
Yeah. Well, great. And I know Missy from grad school in Connecticut, and also because we've just know a lot of the same people. And in fact, my group Now Ensemble has performed one of Missy's pieces, Magic with Everyday Objects, which has been performed in Pittsburgh twice, I might add. And so I don't know if this is a good place to start, but I was listening to your tracks, which I enjoyed immensely. And I noticed, I actually knew this beforehand, but a strange similarity between A Door into the Dark and Magic for Everyday Objects. If you could talk about that, the relationship between those two.
Sure. Well, I don't really see much of a difference between the music that I write for my ensemble, Victoire, and then the music that I write for chamber ensembles like Now Ensemble or orchestras or basically pieces that other people ask me to write. And one thing that I do a lot of is arrange works that I write for other ensembles for my group. And it's just a way of kind of getting deeper into the material and getting that stuff out there. I mean, I love Now Ensemble, and if I could take them around on tour with me all the time, then I would. But the reality is that I can't. And I formed this group Victoire as a way to get all that music out there that isn't played all the time. And so instead of waiting for another group to take it on tour, I decided to take this music on tour myself.
Right. Right.
So. Yeah. So the short answer is that yes, I arranged this piece, Magic with Everyday Objects, for my ensemble, and then I changed a lot of it and gave it a different name, and it ended up being the first track on the album.
Yeah. Well, that's really cool because that track seems to be kind of a unifying element throughout the whole album. Like as I was listening to it, I was noticing like little motives that I think kept kind of coming back. And stuff like that. But actually, could you just talk about like the instrumentation and how you decided on that and the particular, collective sound of the group?
Sure. The instrumentation is violin, clarinet, 2 keyboards, double bass, and then a lot of electronics, and also a lot of like funky toy instruments like melodica or toy accordion that find their way in there too. And I decided on this because it's kind of like it's like a mini orchestra. You have the string section, you have the winds, you have the low strings, and then the keyboards can kind of be anything. And I also kind of modeled it off of the Philip Glass Ensemble. I would just go to see them and see all these keyboards and realize the potential that instrumentation had, and that was very powerful for me. So that's kind of where it came from, and I love it. I never get tired of writing for that group of instruments.
Yeah, cool. Well, that kind of leads into something that I know you brought up before with me talking about how the idea of genre always comes up, and personally, I think that we've kind of been doing this kind of thing for a while. Like it kind of gets old, like, oh, what is it? Is it pop music? Is it classical music? And that kind of thing. But I mean, it obviously has, elements of both. I was really interested in your take on that, but also like how do you write for the group? Because it seems like like a group, almost like a rock group or something. And yet, I'm assuming that it's mostly written music. Could you tell me, like, your process of making music with the group?
Sure. Well, everything is very much written out. Every note is written out. Yeah. And so in that sense, I really think of it as a classical group. I mean, I write scores and I give everyone sheet music. And that's kind of where we start for each piece. But it's different from writing for, a string quartet or an orchestra, in that a lot goes on in the rehearsal process. The pieces evolve much more, and the group members are giving input, and we're experimenting with improvisation and structure. So there are certain things that change after I hear it with the group, and I feel like they have a lot of freedom to make those changes. And I also I end up taking a few more risks with the work that I write for the group, just because I know that I'm going to have these 5 women in my living room practicing this music, and that it's not a scary situation where we have, 2 hours of rehearsal time before a show. I know that I have enough time to change things. So I think a lot of my most personal material and my most risky material ends up being for this ensemble. Yeah. And in terms of genre, I mean, this is kind of a cop-out answer, but I don't think about it, because I think that I grew up, I've been was in music school for 8 years. I studied classical music my entire life, and I love classical music. And I am a composer. I think that's how I describe myself. But I also love indie rock and pop, and for someone of our generation, it's kind of like, duh, you grow up surrounded by that music. How can you not be affected by it? So it's something. I think that people hear it and they think, oh, it's a mixture of classical music and indie rock, or it's indie classical, or whatever you want to call it. But for me, it's just, this is the music that comes second nature to me. This is the easiest music for me to write. And so I don't think about, when I'm writing, oh, is this too indie, or is this too classical? Is this too complicated? It just kind of comes out.
Right. No, I know exactly what you mean. And it's like you said, we don't think about it. Maybe a few years ago, or maybe like a generation or even a half a generation ago, it was a big struggle for people. I think it was like to reconcile their pop music, whatever they liked, and the classical music side. But no, I know exactly what you mean. I mean, it's I think we're beyond that, and we're at a point where we're just making music again,
I hope so.
Yeah.
There's enough to worry about without thinking about, how is this going to be categorized on iTunes or in a record store or something. I mean, those things just don't really matter, and you can't change what you write in order to fit that. Because I think that's what doesn't make sense. I think that the genres right now are too tightly defined and defined in such a narrow way that they're really restrictive for artists.
Right, right.